Welcome to European Startup Universe Talks. In this series, we will meet startup founders, entrepreneurs, investors, and major stakeholders of the startup ecosystem. They will let us in on the challenges and the successes of their career, their view on the current state of the startup field, and give vital advice for those in the beginning stages of their startup journey. If you're in the early stages of your startup and are looking for an opportunity to take it to the next level, join the 6-week European Startup Universe initiative of your country. There you will get founding opportunities, meet with experienced experts and founders, and network with the startup community and much more. Let's make the EU the global powerhouse for startups. Welcome to European Startup Universe Talks. My name is Mauritia Klingsborg, and I'm happy to welcome Cristiana Bogateanu and Cristian Dascalu. Cristiana, you're the Executive Director of ROTSA, and Cristian, you're the Chairman at ROTSA. A big welcome to both of you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. So I would like us to begin with, could you tell me more about ROTSA and what you do?
And for this, I'll give the word to the initiator of ROTSA, actually, who also brought me in the team. Christy, please.
It's a pleasure to be here in our team together with Cristiana, our executive director and the strong force of the organization. ROTSA started as a process in which to build up more energies together in the local ecosystem in order to support further the next steps of the startups developing in our region and in Romania, and especially to support them to make faster steps, better steps, larger steps. In a context in which, let's say that the support is scattered into different pieces, and we are trying for the organization to bring it together and also to add, let's say, our personal sauce into this, the secret startup sauce, which is portrayed into other discussions, and to support these companies to ramp up faster.
Just to say that ROTSA actually has a background of 10 years before rebranding into ROTSA. It used to organize entrepreneurial events for 100,000 of startups in the Romanian ecosystem. So it's not a new organization, it's just rebranded. Having this in mind, it's actually very narrowed into Romanian ecosystem. And by this, I mean with mentors, organizations, startups, and so on. So basically, we are building for 10 years now in hundreds and thousands of projects we have been involved.
That sounds amazing. So what would you say is the current state of the startup ecosystem in Romania?
I would say it's growing. I think it's an ascendant trend in this field. Last year, we have released a COVID study, how the tech startups were impacted by COVID-19. And we see kind of interesting conclusion, such as domains such as fintech and health tech, they grew up. And that's because opportunity came along, such as funding opportunities, incubators, hackathons, and so on. So yeah, I do believe that's a growing trend, and well, we are trying to help with this just because we have connected to European Startup Universe. It's like it's not enough to build up in the country, but actually expose the startups to the European level.
Mm-hmm. What I could add here is that the Romanian startups are getting into a post-UI path, which is the Romanian unicorn process. If until now we from so many points of view, everybody tried different things. Finally, we have also results, and results are existed from a long time, but now we have something big time, concrete, standard at the standard level, at the unicorn level, which this space in Europe delivered. And now we are getting into ramping up and building even further, having now also examples, having also concrete processes which been undertaken and delivered results. So let's say that we are into this post-unicorn process in which still we have only one or potentially two more, depending how we count, but for sure more are coming, just because we have a clear vision of the existing one.
Which would you say is the biggest stakeholders in the startup field in Romania?
At this level, I think we can talk about several sections of stakeholders. For example, at the policy, to start with this, at the policy governmental zone, I think we could have more. And we'll go to the next one. For sure, we are having the investors segment, and which are diversifying more and more. If until now we had good signs from in the last 5 years, 10 years, if we had good signs of activation from business angels, which paved the way and made their small tickets, which wasn't their, but now their tickets lately grew pretty much. In the last 5 years, we've seen a concrete and systemic activation of the venture capital endemic local organizations. And also these two main types of investors are activating different ones. We can talk maybe a little bit about the stock exchange, which is having its own take into this. It's different from the other two, but it's complementary, or it can be for a certain type of startups which need investment. Then we are having also corporates trying to get in through the investment part, but actually their bigger take it's on the POCs and ways of how they could work initially with the startup to give them traction. Further than this, I'm sure that we can talk, and here I can leave Cristiana to detail about the organizations which are activating at different levels as stakeholders.
I think the most important part, which actually it's quite a mission of ROTSA as well, is the fact that all the organization they are fitting their stage of developing of the startup. So starting the, let's say, ideation to the exit. And this kind of offered us a very important thing, is a thing that we can collaborate. So today we see angel investors or people representing VC as a mentors in some incubation programs. And the important of that is that startup who access the type of education can, connect from the early stage to, let's say, an angel or a VC, which he's going to furtherward, take with further conversations. So I think every organization has his key role in the growing of the startups. I wouldn't say that they're, one of them is most important than the other. I think that the most important factor here is the collaboration between the stakeholders.
How would you say that you at ROTSA are working to uphold the maybe I should formulate it like this more. What is the value of an organization like ROTSA or like European Startup Universe? Why is it so important?
I think it's a strong factor of coagulation, which is bringing. For example, when Cristiana decided to go ahead with ESU, with European Startup Universe, we saw a big value into bridging. On one side, the diaspora, the Romanian diaspora, which we have outside and already internationalized, together with all these international environments, which a start for a startup, it's so valuable, and it's kind of part of their definition. Like, they need to globalize. If they are not globalizing, they are not actually a startup. This coagulation and this activating in a distributed way this type of projects, because it's not about, for example, let's say that now we are in Cluj. It happens that we are in Cluj because let's say for us it's hard to meet because I'm more in Bucharest sometimes. So it happens to be in Cluj, which is the second city of Romania, which is a strong technological hub, if not the most, maybe the biggest one after the capital, but it's a debatable thing, of course. It's not about only one city. It's not about only the capital. It's not only about the business angels. It's not only about the mentors. It's about the framework in which these things come together, the board game in which we manage to meet and exchange different things, put resources together. And here we are looking each month at how to integrate more and more a critical number of players in the local ecosystem to work together in ways that they don't even imagine, that we don't even imagine, that we are not coming with a recipe and we say we need to do like this. We are coming just to say that let's think what we can do more together. What of your activity you can share it, or you could invite the others to happen. An ideal which we have in the organization, which came into the strategy meetings, it was the fact that no project to happen with only one organizer, only like organizing for us from a certain city. It should be at least two in this year, but from next year it should be 3 or at least 3 or at least 4 organizers to do something together, to have shared projects.
I would say there's a very much similarity between European Startup Universe and ROTSA. It's because the way we've kind of, let's say, started this and brought this in Romania was due to your invitation into, make it European. So it's the same we are kind of doing in our country.
Let's strive to make it national.
Exactly. And of course, international, because the startups in Romania, they need access to international markets, and kind of it's one of our value to offer the startups the opportunities to be known.
Cristiana, you're a country organizer at ESU. Would you like to tell everyone a little bit more about that and what that entails?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I'm just an interface. As I have a team behind who is actually working on this project. It's a 6 weeks incubation program in which we have invited, by the way, lots of experts and angel investors and companies to come along. We are waiting for tech startups to enroll. Actually, we will start soon promoting the registration. It's actually the first incubation program ROTSA as the rebranding, let's say, organization. It's doing in Romania, and and we are very proud of being part of this. And thank you for the opportunity. And I think the most important and valuable thing is that all the materials will be registered and then distributed via Facebook and YouTube. So the educational material will be access to everyone. And furthermore, I think it's a very important opportunity for the tech startups to connect to angel investors from European network. So yeah, we are proud of being part of this. And furthermore, I think this is just the first step we are doing together. Despite the European Startup Universe incubation, for us it means a lot because we already connected with some key actors on a European level, and we kind of started some links to PropTech domain in Romania and in some other cities and countries. So for us, it's a very important program.
What would you say if part of like getting started and getting along with the startup could be this program. But what things would you say is needed for someone to get started and succeed with the startup in the very beginning?
I think there is I would add, it's a lateral answer. I think the first thing and the first outcome which you get as a participant into this, it's the fact that you're gonna start, and the fact that you start, and it's as I know the project, it's very inclusive, very open to work with different stages of startups and to expose them to all this international mentoring opportunity. And it's very important, so the startups start to aggregate their ideas, to put it together, a consultant, and challenge it with different mentors. With consultant with the application process first, see if they can move to the next step, and then be accepted and get into the ring, let's say, and play. This is the first part. The second part, I think, it's by interacting with an organization that it happens now to be ROTSA, but it can be another startup organization. It's another big point that you'll build up different connections, which some you'll realize that are opportunistic and good now, some you'll realize that are good on the way. You'll just have some aha moments later. Everything happens pretty providentially. So start, engage with quality organizations, and the meta, which we have the opportunity to activate through coming into this cluster of in national organizations, which are national organizers of ESU. It's a next level, because this will open them to the international world.
And we are speaking by heart, as well as me and Christy have started from zero a lot of times. So we know that the first thing is, and the most important thing is to start. And having, you know, the ecosystem and people to support you and to you know, teach you, I think it's very important to have this.
What would you say that you were lacking in the beginning of your career? What was needed for you, but that wasn't available?
Christy, go.
First. In terms of the ecosystem, which I think I passed through situations in which I didn't have with who to discuss about my idea. And not only, not even consultants. On the other side, is not, you don't necessarily want to talk with somebody which is, I'm acting sometimes as a consultant, but not to interact with somebody which is not only a consultant, which is kind of gives you a friendly, professional feedback at an empathic level, and at which he understands the level of the development levels of the startup and could come with input from that, not from his experience in a corporate world, where you could get a lot of valuable things, but from that background. And sometimes you need it, sometimes you need something different. We had the impression 10 years, 15 years ago that we needed to learn only from books or from your own experience. Now, I think it's so much different, the situation, that you actually have actual people with which you could have an actual discussion, talk about actual situation on your side, on his side, and them to be relevant and to be close enough. For example, into different incubation acceleration processes, we are looking, for example, also at people to bring in front of the startups, which are not like 20 years farther, 20 years more successful than the level at which the startup needs the input, because maybe he will not recall all his pain, all his needs from 20 years back into his professional life. So we are trying to bring people which are for sure more advanced than them, but they can still relate with the initial moments of their success. So they could transmit something relevant, something very relevant.
So if you could give one piece of advice to someone who is thinking about getting started with their startup, what would you say?
Get a mentor and listen very carefully. I think that will be, I mean, I remember when I used to have my first startup, I was lacking a lot of accounting knowledge and a lot of, let's say, legal knowledge. And if I would have a mentor back then, I think to explain me like literally what the terms are and conditions, or someone who would help me build the business canvas, I think the things would have stayed different. So yeah, and get to lots of, you know, incubation, let's say, programs, and to get lots of experience and feedback about your idea, and not only the idea, but how to build up a team. Because in the end, when we look to a startup, yes, the product can be reshaped, but the team values and the core team needs to be, you know, set up for the beginning. And I think this is the most important thing to get as a startup.
Sometimes or many times, the founder has the positive bias in which he's trying to demonstrate an idea, and you can easily do that because you are talking with yourself in the mirror, and you cannot say you're ugly today. The mentoring perspective, especially if you are a coachable person, what it gives you the ways in which to deconstruct your idea. And actually in lean startup, you can deconstruct very fast things, and as you do it as fast as possible, you remain with the minimum, with those few things you cannot deconstruct, and those are your assets, are your valuable things in which you can pursue, which you could pursue further, and don't pursue your nice dreams, pursue the client reality, which you can learn it also through this perspective of the mentor, which he's coming there, is not his idea, he wants to look smart, so maybe he'll be harsher sometimes. You need to balance also this to see, okay, I take this, but this I don't take it. So
what would you say to a person who doesn't have a mentor? How is there a way to know if your idea is realistic or not?
I think having a realistic idea, it's a different thing than having a mentor. I think there should be, you know, it's like agile. First, know your, you know, persona and see exactly if he has a problem, he would pay for in order to get a solution. This should be, yes, can be done with a mentor, but I mean, this is a product fit more than having a mentor.
Yes, and by talking about product market fit, we can look at Uber. We know everybody. Uber for I don't know, 4 to 6 years, it didn't have the product market fit. So it's such a endurance. It's such a marathon which you need to run. Trusting into yourself, into your team, gathering and expanding your team as much as possible through mentors, through advisors, because sometimes you can't afford to grow your team. You don't have a budget. You need to find quasi-team approach. So for sure, these are two complementary things, and but I think the most important thing is to start great ideas, get fine-tuned in the market, not in a drawer, in a file, and it's there, my idea, and just launch and expect to find as fast as possible ways, points where you need to turn left or right, back or up or whatever, and pivot constantly, and expect that you're gonna pivot constantly, and don't get scared of pivoting. Just find a way fast where you need to turn, and even if you can make a few wrong turns, you can turn and get back into a good position. So train your turning ability.
Just to say, ROTSA had a similar approach. So last year when we rebranded and did the study, we actually asked for the startups, the tech startup, what their need is. So it's the same, because we afterwards we have offered them events to get funding for their startups, hackathons, and other programs. But basically it's the same. So we ask them what their needs are, and we just develop programs based on their needs. And it's similar to the having a product or a solution.
It's about being able to adapt, perhaps. But speaking of when things are not working out as maybe the way that you want, do you have in the past a failure in your career that you later feel like was really a blessing in disguise?
It's a very good question.
Only one.
I think I don't think I can call it, or I don't like to call them failures, but there are several things in which we needed to adapt, and we did it merely, and we've been happy of the result, not necessarily of the process in which we endured. We passed through it, and I think these are like at the order of monthly. It is happening. So if you are open to adapt, and you try to do that as often as possible, you'll not arrive into things where you could say you regret that or the other, or you could do it differently. I think it's more about the mindset of being into continuous adaptation, and just take it as a normality.
It's a learning process. I mean, if you don't try, then you don't get the chance to learn. And how can you go to a startup saying, listen, do this and this, if you don't have a previous experience in which you learn? So for us, innovation, I think as an organization is very important. We try out a lot of things or projects, and we do brainstorm in our, let's say, board advisory meetings, and see exactly how can we implement those projects. But I mean, it's part of the, process, and you get to be a better version of you and a better version of the organization, because the organization is learning. And I think the most important in this is to also let the team to kind of, learn from this. And this is how you become stronger in the end.
So you shouldn't be afraid of making mistakes and failing, because that is what in the end will lead you to be successful.
Well, I think if we look, all of us, if we look in our lives, like personal or professional, haven't been, any situation in which we said, I can't do this, or you managed to, in the end, get it through that. So, yeah, I don't know what to say about fear. And for us, they're not words. They're learning experience. It's trial, and we see what happens.
That's great. I feel like it would be it's good to end on a positive note like this. But is there anything, before we wrap up, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, it was a very pleasant discussion, and I hope we can continue it further with you, with your colleagues, with this context in which, let's say, ROTSA is arriving, as we discussed with the lead organizers of European Startup Universe. We were talking about the fact that it's a great opportunity for organizations, also for organizations to come together, not only to bring extra value to the process which we create through this project, but a stakeholder of this project are also the organizers and the teams which are the countries which are participating into this endeavor. So it's a great opportunity, and I'm sure Cristiana looks forward to take this also into this energy, these collaborations also into other projects or to follow-ups of European Startup Universe.
I think this is just the beginning. The fact that 12 countries are working together with startups at once in their country is just the beginning of a very interesting, let's say, kind of like a neural network. And I think if our way of collaboration expands to the level of startups within each country, then the startups and the organization of each country will collaborate with the other country. I do believe this is going to be just the first step for further projects into Horizon or any other opportunities that will come along. Hopefully we'll try together to scale it up in the years that will come. And I think it's the fact that we've met and we got to know each other is the most important thing in this program.
I very much agree. Thank you very much for talking to me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation and for this great format. Thank you.
To join the 6-week program, register on the website until the 28th of February. Go to thestartupuniverse.org. Make sure to follow us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and on TikTok. Please like and subscribe in order to get notified for our next episode on YouTube or on the podcast platforms. Thank you for listening.